coming out today for the state of the grid. Um, I've got a couple of things to walk through on the grid itself, the status, and then Callie has some. There's a cool event or a couple of events coming up that we want to talk about and spend some time on today that we're really excited about. So uh, I'm going to get straight to it. I'm going to try something I haven't done before, so hopefully it works. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. I'll give it just a second to load for people. Thanks, Bensky. You may need to click on it to see the image. So what I'm showing here is the in development version of the website replacement. So a little background. I mentioned at the last State of the Grid that our website software is based on a package called JOpenSim, and it uses Joomla, which is a content management system for the underlying mechanism, and then it was built on top of that. And when we first got the grid started, um, there's a ton of things to set up to set up a grid if you're trying to actually support real people. It's not just a personal thing. And JOpenSim was an option, and I took it because it gave me a fair amount of functionality without too much extra hassle. Um, Unfortunately, it hasn't been updated in about 4 years, and there's no active development on it. And the technology that it's based on is pretty much out of support now. So there are some potential security issues and things like that. Nothing that is that makes data sensitive data kind of at risk. If for things like that, I update the PHP server and the stuff that it's based on. But there's just no new features. It's very difficult to do development on, and I just decided that I wanted a different alternative. And I had done some work on the website for SkyGrid when we were putting that together because we had a similar problem there, and I didn't have JOpenSim as an option. So I'm going to go do a quick walkthrough of this website, basically. And in related to that, I'm also going to announce that we have a beta grid. I have a parallel permanent grid that is set up that is beta.utopiaskygrid.com. It's not fully enabled yet for account registrations. That's what this is about. My goal is to get this website up as soon as I can finish just a bit more development and allow people to register for the beta grid so that if you want to, you can help me test, which will be very much appreciated. Once it goes through enough test time on the beta grid, what I'll do is I'll roll this over to the production grid, and I'll use the beta grid in the future for grid updates as well. If for things, because I have some things in the works that are a little bit more aggressive than the past. In other words, I've been keeping up with OpenSim Core, but I've been doing some work on the side along with it that is a bit more surgery oriented, like adding the inworlds function calls to the script engine and some things like that. And I need a place to be able to test and run those changes. So I'm I'm going to be using the beta grid for that. We'll push the software out to the beta grid, and then once it gets some testing, roll it over to production. And this website will be the first thing I'll test the integration between those pieces. Um, so that's coming soon, like within the next week or so. I've got a lot of stuff done. I think not everything I wanted, but a lot done, and I'll walk through that now. So the one of the biggest comments that we get um, or issues that we deal with from a support perspective is registrations. And the Joomla website for registrations is a little bit difficult to deal with. It actually asks you in three different places what your name is. Um, and it's for that reason it's problematic. People get confused. They put their real name in a place for the avatar, and then it's difficult to sort out later. Uh, so I made some changes to that. And I'm not going to go through a full registration cycle, but I'm going to show you the page so you can see what information we're collecting. Um, it's basically just first and last name. So this would be your avatar first name, last name, and email address, which has to be unique in the system. So if you have an alt, you can't use the same email because that's a login mechanism for the website, and a password which you confirm. The model field that's in here um, is going to replace is going to be replaced with a pick list. So on the current website, as you're aware, we have starter avatars that you can go through and pick. Um, and by the way, I recognize that people are making comments about what they're seeing, and I appreciate that, and I will read them and then update some of this stuff to reflect that. Uh, the uh, the model list will become the pick list. The model entry will be the pick list for the starter avatar. So you'll be able to either pick Ruth, which is going to be available, or um, a starter avatar out of a number of different avatars that are available. Um, and then you click register. You will get prompted to confirm your email address, but you also get logged into the website so you can do any additional things you want to do. Um, and once the address is confirmed, everything is all set up, and you'll be able to log in. The count and the account here and the grid account are the same, essentially the same thing. They're kept in sync, or they will eventually be the same thing because I'm moving to a single identity system in the code, but that takes me making changes to OpenSim, which goes back to beta testing again. Um, so for now, they're kept in sync. So you will literally, if you make a password change here, it's reflected on the grid as well. So that's the registration part. Let me go in and log in a user. So if you'll notice, the login uses your email address because that's my unique key. That's the thing I know is unique about your avatar. There, this is a little bit contentious, but I actually believe you should be able to change your avatar name. There are not a lot of cases where people should want to do that, but there are some legitimate ones. So I'm using email for the website as a way to log in. And notice it also says forgot your password. There's mechanisms right up front to change. If you go to log in and you can't remember your password or you can't remember your account name, the email account you used, you have a way to recover that stuff. So, okay, so I'm logged in now as myself. This is talking to a development server that I have. I can click my name over here and manage my account information. Uh, this has right now a profile, which is my first and last name, which I talked about. Username, I'll probably take phone number off because frankly, I don't really need it. The identity software I'm using uh, wants that, but it's not required. And I have a way to set a profile picture. You can change your email, and if you do change your email, it'll go through another confirmation step, send you an email that you click on a link for, and it'll take you back here. Change your password. I'm still testing this, and this is something I want some help with, but I'm going to support two-factor authentication initially for the website, eventually for the grid as well. The there's a Firestorm added two-factor authentication and within the last year, about 6 months ago, and I'm still working with Beck on the mechanism they're using to do that so that I can support it. And then finally, personal data. This is related to the um, uh, to basically let you control this stuff. If you want information, basically a record of the information that's being kept, you can download it here. And if you request it, you can delete your account. If you delete your account, of course, you can't log in. The account goes away. But it gives you a way to manage your identity and what personal identifying information we keep on the account. So that's the main profile. There's a few other things I'm going to add here that are grid related. I'd like to make it so that you can tell me if you want offline emails to go to you, and then so the current offlines that we have now don't send emails, but they will, because I'll have that support baked into the website, and you can decide whether or not you want them to go to email. And a few other things that are basically related to your profile. You know that what kinds of things are account related to your account would go there. Um, Kai, if you don't mind, let me get through a little bit more, and then I'll take some questions. But I see that you have your hand up. Um, so that's the main website information. The same information you can get at from manager account here. So pull down. I have a land manager reference. I don't have that currently mocked out yet, but I'm going to basically let you manage your regions. That includes things that are currently handled with tickets. So for instance, if you want to change from Globits to Skybucks as the currency for your region, or you want to restart the region, um, that kind of thing, I'll do that here. Um, the events list is currently mocked out. I'll show you. I mean, it's just an empty entry right now, but I am going to support grid-wide events. And you'll be able to make events and I have a screen that I'm working on for that as well. So it's modeled after the SL event list on the website. Those events will show up in search in World, so you can use the normal event mechanism in World to see what's going on. The Skybucks currency piece is next. That's basically using PayPal as the uh, provider for this. Uh, Skybucks are 250 Skybucks to $1. Um, the interface I'm using can handle either a PayPal payment or some other payment mechanisms like Venmo. You can use PayPal credit, or you can use a debit or credit card. PayPal handles the payment clearance. When this goes into play, I won't process Skybucks things manually like I currently do, but we'll continue to do that until this is available. And the only other change will be that depending on which credit mechanism you choose, there will be a small additional fee. Basically, I'll pass through the fees that are related to charging for the currency, um, so that so you'll ask for how many Skybucks you want. You get a dollar figure for that plus a small fee for the processing. And when I cash you out, and I need to be careful how I'm saying this, that you cannot cash out Skybucks. Like you can't convert them to dollars, but you can pay for services with them. In particular, for uh, tier for the grid. We don't do a lot of other charging right now for other things, but you can use Skybucks to pay for your tier if you have those available and want to. Right now, that's done with a ticket. And again, when this is in place, you'll be able to uh, actually pay your tier with Skybucks this way, and those will be dollar for dollar. So you'll be paying, since you're paying me back. I don't charge a fee for that transaction, so it's only on purchasing. And last but not least, but there is a list transactions. I'm going to come up with something for Globits as well. This one is Skybox focused, and since it's on my dev server, I'm paying myself, so it's not that interesting. But you get the idea. You'll be able to list transactions. You can filter the list, so I can. Um, well, again, there's not much to filter on, but you can filter based on a couple of fields. I should mark those actually, so you know which ones are valid in the search list, and nail down kind of specific transactions that you want to look at. But that mechanism's in place as well when this rolls out. So that's the website, that the replacement. There's a couple of other things that I'm kind of working on that will come in after the initial support. I'd like to do a grid map. That's where it's going to be on the top here. Right, it'll use leaflets, so it's a normal kind of grid map that you can scroll around and see things on, zoom in. Since it's integrated through the website code and the grid, I'll be able to do some things like support, like you do in SL. If you click on a location, you can teleport directly to it, and I'll push a message to the viewer to make that happen. And then the events list is up here as well. It will have interfaces for events. If you register an event, you'll get a list of all of the valid parcels that you can connect to schedule on and things like that. So all the normal kinds of things you'd expect from SL. Some of this I have mocked up. The main things I'm trying to get to initially are account creation and password changing, and the financial part, the economy. So but that's all coming soon. And like I said, I've got a beta grid set up to receive it, and we'll do some testing over there before we get this live. My hope is that probably about a month out, it's live on the main grid. Um, Depends on really how much testing is required to get everything nailed down. All right, I will pause on this part and take questions. And Kai, you're up first.
Okay. This two-factor authentication, is that something that's going to be mandatory or optional?
It's optional. It really is available more for people that want uh, the extra security on an account that comes with that. But it won't be required initially, and I don't know if I'll ever require it. It'll be an optional thing that you can opt into and say, well, I want to use two-factor authentication on my account.
Okay. That
Anything
was it.
else? Okay, alrighty. Any other questions? Judy, you can type in. You can either type in. Oh, Kelly's answering. Yeah, if you have the floor, you can type in there, or you can, or if you're okay to voice, you can just voice your question that way. Either way is fine. Yeah, you're asking about fees on the Skybox purchase. I won't take a fee for us. Um, it's basically 250 to 1 US dollars. I'm actually looking at potentially being able to transact in other currencies as well and let the portal do the conversion. But uh, irregardless, there is uh, there is the amount you pay for Skybucks, and there's no additional fees on that part. There is a fee that the uh, currency, the processor charges to actually handle the transaction. It's like 2% or a minimum amount, I think, something like that, and that would be added to the. Oh, am I muted? Are you guys not hearing me? Okay. Yeah, so essentially no additional fee from the grid. it'll just be 250 to 1, and I'll pass through whatever processing fees I get from PayPal for the type of transaction you're doing. The fees are slightly different depending on whether you're doing a credit card transaction or you're just using your PayPal account, things like that. Um, but yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, so the pass through happens PayPal is handling the processing of all of the transactions, um, regardless of the type of transaction you take. They actually own Venmo, for instance. So for people that have that, that's an option. It has its own set of fees that are associated with that. Using your PayPal account has a set of fees, and then finally, credit card transactions have a small fee. Um, uh, yeah, hopefully you can hear me now, Judy. The So basically, whatever fees are required for the transaction mechanism, um, the payment, I'll pass those through on the page when you make your transaction, and those will get charged. You'll pay for that plus the cost of the currency. And like I said, when you apply the Skybucks to any services that are going on, that will be one to one. So I'll give you, for every Skybuck, 250 Skybucks, it's worth $1 of US in credit towards the services. Um, I'm not sure why Judy lost audio. Yeah, I should keep speaking. Are there any other questions while we're trying to sort this out? Yeah, because don't think I show was muted, and other people are saying they.
If I may, can you hear me, Judy?
Okay.
Sometimes when people pop the shared screen out, the text channel and other assorted Discord channels kind of gets lost behind them. So sometimes if you Alt Tab, it'll bring your focus back to Discord and the stage channel itself. So you might try that. Sorry.
Okay. Any other questions on the website, current state of the website? And all right. I'm going to stop sharing then, and we'll continue. I've got a couple more topics I want to talk about, and then I'm going to turn it over to Callie because there's a number of things that she wants to address. All right. So screen should have went away. It's just me talking now. Maybe that'll affect. There's a couple windows popped out here, so maybe that's an issue with that Judy's seeing. So all right, I'm gonna go on to the additional topics. I mentioned the website and paying in Skybucks. Eventually, I will add the ability to keep track of invoices within the system itself, so that you can directly pay for your region in the Skybucks currency, or you can pay the invoice that's generated via PayPal. There's a couple things that now that I'm going to have a website available that I am responsible for. I can do a number of interesting things. One of those actually relates to partnering, and I'm going to add in the profile section and under grid, we'll have the ability to partner or departner residents. The other thing I can do with that, and I'm not sure if this is just kind of something that's cute and nice to do, or people would actually value it, but we can potentially support a non-traditional partnering arrangement where there is a graph of people that are partnered. What I mean by that is you'll always have a primary partner. The viewer will only show one person in a partnership, but you could potentially bring a third person or so on into that partnering relationship, and I'll just have to track that stuff on the server side. So I'll get into that more when we get to a point where it's available, and it might be. I'm not sure if it's going to be valuable or not. We'll see, but it's something I can do, so I figured I might as well code it that way. I did ping. I wanted to talk about IP protection for just a little bit. Everybody should be aware that from our perspective, from the grid's perspective, we want to do the best we can possibly do to respect intellectual property for people. There's just so much ripped content in OpenSim at large, and it's not just OpenSim. Most of that content actually comes from Second Life, and it's shared around and pretty within that community with pretty much impunity. And I understand the desire for content, absolutely. Honestly, the practice that's so common, it makes it difficult to get content providers to come over. We have made no, you can't force someone to partner you. um, it makes it difficult to get content providers to come over because they just either don't take the grid seriously, or because it's an OpenSim grid, or I'm sorry, Judy, I don't know what else to do. We'll have the recording, so you should be able to see that. Anyway, intellectual property, like I said, is important, and there are some regions that were built out early on related to, well, there's the Memorial region, and there was a build on that region until very recently that was botted. Not all most of the content isn't, and we've tried for a while to basically be careful about that sort of thing. But we had somebody else build the build, and I don't think that they even knew that it was botted content. They just found something that they wanted to use and put it up. So we've been going around and slowly kind of building the public regions, starting with that Memorial region. Callie's been focusing on that primarily with help from Sapphira, and that help is hugely appreciated. Basically, just trying to identify cases where content is clearly not legit and replacing it with something that is. That's about the best I think we can do as a grid, is to at least kind of use the same approach for the public regions, at least, that we say we advocate for our users. So that's an activity that's going to be going on over the next couple of weeks, and hopefully there's not a lot of stuff, but there's a few things to clean up. So we'll be doing that. I also did a takedown recently of some content that came from Seder Farm. I'm not a big fan of Seder Farm. I have to say this. Uh, I know a couple people like to run it, and I recognize that it's your region and you have the right to do that. It causes a lot of trouble. I'll give you an example. There are literally about 400,000 note cards in the asset server that were created and never used and will never go away. They will go away because I'm going to write some code to go in and clean them up. But uh, there was a version of Seder that just created note cards and then like every 2 minutes for every animal that was rezzed out and all that thing. It's kind of a mess. So I'm not a big fan of it. Uh, the other reason I'm not a big fan is that people will bring animals into the Seder farm system, but using botted models, and that's actually more common than I wished it was, and that's the case that we hit recently. I did a normal takedown process for that. Basically, notified the person that would be affected, and then removed the content from the region and poisoned the content in inventory, so it's uh, not available anymore. Basically, can't be used. Um, but if and speaking to the specific case, the Seder Farm case, we have a really great provider on the grid that does breedable animals and things like that. Foxglove and Foxtrot is a good alternative, a great alternative in my opinion, because they're here and they're active and they really, really support their customers. So um, I'm not going to go as far as saying you can't run Seder Farm on the grid, but uh, I'd like you to look at some alternatives because I'd really rather not support it. That's kind of as much as I'm going to say. Uh, Beyond that, with regard to IP protection, I'm not going to go on a but I also would encourage people to look for valid alternatives for things that they know are copied illegally. And if we can help, like you have an idea of something that you'd like to see or a content provider that you'd like to see over here, I'll be happy to have conversations and see what we can do. It's going to be a hard sell for a while, but I think if we're consistent and really try and focus on the fact that we respect intellectual property, eventually that will pay off. Um, so like I said, no witch hunts, but try and be aware, and if we can help, we will. So, and we're going to go through that same process basically for uh, our own uh, our own content, the things that are on the public regions. All right, so I'm looking at my list. Any questions about the stuff we just covered? Because I think I've just got an NGC update, and then I want to talk about some events. All right, let me go ahead. Shops. We talked last time about the fact that our intent is to shut down the Creators Guild regions. There's a little bit of work that's going on behind the scenes to make that all happen. Our intent was to actually open up some of the shops that are on this grid, on this region, on Welcome. I say this, I'm sorry, not everybody's sitting in here. The Welcome region has some shops on it, like traditional Inworld's Welcome had. There's going to be a memory area for old photographs and things like that, but the rest of those will be shops. They'll be shared, so it isn't. We'll try and make it so people can get their logo put up and have a way to direct traffic to their own regions as well. But that's, I think, our likely replacement for the Creators Guild shops. It's just getting to a point where we have enough people here. We didn't want to essentially be running renting region space or renting shop space when private people could do that. So, but we will make some shop space available for freebies on Welcome, and you need to be aware that Welcome is the main landing point for both local residents and hypergrid residents now. So anything that's put on this region would be accessible to hypergridders as well. That may actually be a positive thing. In other words, you might be something that you can use to get hypergridders to come to your hypergrid accessible shop, but just be aware of it when we get to that point. And we'll go into more on the shop stuff. We have, like I said, a little bit of logistical work to do to finish making things ready to move, and then we'll go ahead and go from there. Okay. I've been all over the map. I've got 2 topics left. The first one is an NGC update. The Next Gen Core project, which is the group that I'm doing the work with on the grid software and the idea of the trusted grid, continues to move forward. We have a number of additional people that have joined and are participating in conversations. I don't know that I feel like the rate of contributions is what I'd like it to be. To be perfectly honest, I end up doing a lot of the work myself, at least on the grid. Hopefully, the conversations that are happening around trusted grid will expand that. And we've actually had some good discussions about like avatar that could be used across trusted grids. That's a really nice, high quality avatar. And I'm hoping that somebody will pick up that ball and run with it and go from there. But it's still valuable to have the forum and for those discussions to occur. So that's good. The other thing too is that there's some work. I'm doing work in addition. I mentioned alongside of the current just maintenance on new software for OpenSim. That involves a rewrite of the main software to support current .NET technologies. It will have a huge performance impact on the grid as a whole, not to mention stability impact. There is a project going on in Core that's similar to this, and unfortunately, I have some real problems with the way that technology is being handled and how it's being approached. So I'm going to go forward with what we're doing. I mentioned last December I was going to do a fork, so this is kind of the first visible part of that, and we'll use our testing mechanism with the beta grid and everything to roll that out when we get it. But when we do, I think people will see a more performant grid. I'd love to do some go back to what we did back in Inworld's days and do some testing and basically see how many people we can get on a region, because I'm pretty sure that we can blow away traditional OpenSim once I get these changes all functional and implemented. Of course, we need people to do that, so keep bringing your friends over and recommending us to them, and we'll do our best to take care of everybody as we go forward. All right. The last topic I have is related to an upcoming anniversary or two. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take any questions on the additional topics I talked about or anything I've talked about, and then I'm going to turn it over to Callie for an update on that stuff, on the anniversary. So floor is open. If anybody has questions, go raise your hand and we'll try and help you out. Judy should not raise your hand. Well, you could, but I don't want to screw you up again. But if you have questions, I'll try and cover them.
Oh, there we go. I'll take my answer off the air, as they say. So you're talking about shutting down the bigger regions that you had separated, the Creators Guild regions. What about the shops that are on those regions where we haven't seen those creators in a long time? Is there a way we're going to save their content, or are we just going to lose that content?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mentioned there's some logistical stuff that's still getting worked. That's one of them. So there's in a couple of cases, we're trying to get permission to keep the content that is currently on some of the grid, on the Creators Guild regions on the grid. We just have to work out the logistics for that. So yeah, our goal is to not lose anything that's there that's legitimate. If somebody really hasn't been active and doesn't think they're going to come back, and wants to pull it, then of course we'd respect that. But we'd like to try and keep as much of it as we can.
And the next question is, if we have stores on those guild regions, do we need to empty those out?
Not yet. We'll send out an announcement when we're ready to start moving. If you are ready to start moving, we can probably do something. In other words, if you have the cycles and want to do it, we can try and start doing some of that now, like in the next week or so, because the space is available on Welcome, of course, now. So, and I'll let Callie address how she wants to take feedback on that if somebody's willing to try and move their store, because she's largely going to be the one coordinating some of those moves. Hopefully I don't get myself in trouble by saying that. And of course I'm available to help as well, but I just know who's going to do the bulk.
Did you hear the eye roll all the way across the room?
Yes, all the way from upstairs. Yes. All right. Anybody else? All right, sweetheart, I think you have the floor.
Okay. I will try and be brief. But first thing I want to address is the Creators Guild regions. Those are excellent questions, Seb. And as Mike indicated, there's a lot that's going into kind of moving some of that content over with permissions and such, and placing it and getting all that squared away. If, however, you are able to clean out your store and you want to do so in advance of the moves, that's fine. I have no problem with that. So if you've got the time to do it, or you're just, you're ready to do it, please feel free to go ahead and do that. I expect that we'll probably get the logistics wrapped up in the next couple of weeks, I want to say. Once that's done, we've got a number of other projects that are kind of in line, waiting behind it. So once the Creators Guild regions are pulled down, then we'll start working on how to get people to get their content over to the Welcome stores, and with little landmark pins and things like that, and what that looks like. So we're not there yet, but that's coming too. So that's coming behind that. The other thing that we're working on is, as Mike mentioned, is replacing content that is of a questionable nature that we found. So our biggest and first one is the Memorial region. We're almost done with that. What we've been doing is going through it in sections so that we don't kind of change the whole vibe of the region, because it was beautifully done, and then just replacing pieces that we've come across. It makes it smaller and more efficient to go through, but it does take a little longer to do properly. Beyond that, there's now see, I've lost my train of thought. I was thinking about that voluntold thing you just did, Mike. Let's see, welcome. All right, well, let's move on to upcoming events and things. I'm sure it'll come back, like 2 in the morning to me. upcoming events. So this year marks 5 years of Utopia Skye Grid, which is a really good milestone in the open sim world where grids kind of pop up and pop off at any given time. 5 years is a pretty good milestone to reach. And if you think about it in terms of in-worlds, we are just over 50% of the time that they were in existence. We've kind of gotten to that point, you know? So when I realized that, I was like, oh, that's really wicked cool. So we're celebrating that this year, and any anniversary celebrations are usually done in August and September, which works really well with the schedule of things coming up. As I understand, there's going to be a summer-ish kind of festival and all sorts of things like that. And so the great anniversary this year will be in September. And we also realized that this year marks 10 years of the Golden Touch Theater. Our first show was in September of 2013. So when we realized that milestone, I was like, okay, this is too, tempting a proposition. So what we're going to be doing at this minute, what it looks like is, like a weekend of events, maybe something special on Friday. We're going to have a very big, um, I don't even, the word escapes me. It is by far the Golden Touch Theater's largest show to date. It's going to be a redoing and an elevating of the Odyssey that we did back in 2015. And since it's for a 10-year anniversary, it's only going to be 10 times better than it was back then. So we're really working on that like right now. And then we're going to have, courtesy of Pyro VR, a Pyro musical that will be done as well around that time. It might be the same time, it might be the next day, but I'd really love to get some things from you guys. What do you want to do to celebrate the anniversary? We don't really have an events team. I'm not really sure we have enough concurrence to have an events team, but if you think that will help with concurrence, then by means, let's create an events team and let's make some things happen, because it can't just be Mike and I, and it can't just be, a couple of people. We really have to have everybody kind of involved in what you want to see happen. And I think there's no better time than an anniversary celebration. And that gives people enough time. I mean, that's what, 5 months from now to maybe kind of plan something fun. So I would say if you want to open up a club and do things, let's do it. Let's coordinate a time. Let's make things happen. I think that we should be proud of where we are in a world of, well, debauchery and the unwashed masses. We've managed to survive and grow. I think that's fabulous. I don't know, Mike, if there was anything else you wanted me to mention. I believe I've covered it. I know there's something I'm missing as far as projects we're working on, but it'll come to me later.
No, I think that's good, unless there's questions. Like one quick comment. Well, if someone has a question, raise your hand and we'll get to it. But I did want to mention something. If you follow Open Hypergrid Business, they post charts that show how big various grids are and how many residents they have and blah blah blah. I think this grid is very healthy and of a size that, frankly, we're competitive with most of the other commercial grids that are out there, and I would include even a few that are larger, traditionally larger than we are. We've got a lot of new residents that have come over from SL, amongst other things, and we're happy to have you here. And it's we're competitive. What I don't do is all of the goofy gaming of the numbers that happens. So there are people that there's a grid that I'm aware of that claims that they have, you know, hundreds of regions And I personally know how many physical servers they run their grid on, and there's just no physical way that's possible. Unless you have a bunch of things just sitting there doing nothing. And I don't think that's a valid measure of performance or grid or anything else. There's cases where I know of a grid that claims lots and lots of residents online at any given time, where it's impossible that they have that many people online if you start to look at OpenSimWorld and the events that are going on. Anyway, it's I'm saying in part, don't trust what you see in terms of those. And I think that from all of the real relevant measures that I have, we're doing quite well. I would say we're one of the more active grids. There's a lot of 1 and 2 person kind of personal grids floating around, and then there's a middle tier, a couple of grids, one in particular, OS Grid, which is much larger. And all of those have different models, but I think we're doing quite well. And I'm proud of what we've accomplished in the 5 years we've been running. And I want to continue to build this and grow it. So we're committed to that as well. Anyway, that's it. So let's take any final questions and then we'll wrap up. Kai, go ahead.
Sorry, my mic was muted.
Oh, got it. Okay, go ahead.
The latest version of Firestorm seems to be 668.
Yeah.
But I also hear there are a lot of newer versions, but they don't seem to be released. So how does that work?
Yeah, so there is as a case in point, I am running 6612, which was released today. There is a project, and I'll have to take a rain check and dig this out offline and send out the information. But there's a project where you can sign up to get notified about beta viewers for Firestorm.
All these versions are beta versions.
The ones since the last released version was 668. So yes, anything that was released with a version number after that is a beta version of the. If I had to make a guess, Beck is the primary person that does viewer maintenance. She's very active in Fantasy Fair, and Fantasy Fair just finished. So I expect we're going to see a viewer update pretty soon.
And do you have any idea about PBR coming to OpenSim in the near future?
Yes, that's a great question. I have had conversations with Beck. The way that Linden Labs is doing the development, their code is not yet available. So once they release and it drops into the Firestorm viewer, I'm going to work with them to try and identify additional support we need on the server side. Right now I can't really speculate how big of an effort that will be. I don't think it's going to be a big effort because, like most things, I think the server ends up just storing information and feeding it back when it's requested. But my goal is to make sure that we support PBR as quickly as we possibly can once it's released out of the labs.
But no date yet.
No. Yeah, no, I don't think that Linden Labs has announced or form a release date for Second Life yet, and it'll have to at least be up to that point before anything's available that I can work with. So.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Great questions. Hey, Tanya.
Hello, everyone. It's not a question. I'm just wanting to let you know that we're going to be streaming a couple of hours of jazz over at the Monentes Jazz Lounge right after this event is over, this meeting. So we'd love to see you there. If anyone wants to teleport, just I am me in world and I'll get you over there. Thank you.
Awesome. And Silence has the stage. Thanks everybody for coming out today. Hopefully the cadence that we've been using for doing these things is helpful, and I'm looking forward to getting this website out because I can get back to some things like PBR that Kai asked about for the grid. And if you don't know what PBR is, I believe there is a forum topic on it that you can take a peek at, or we can answer questions. Okay, so Silence is asking about physics, specifically a script for cars and bikes. There is there's nothing on the grid like in the script library yet. But I'll tell you what, if I was going to do a car or a bike, I would be making my way over to the Arcadia Asylum. You can find her region. You can find it on the Hypergrid OpenSimWorld pages. There are a number of really nice models that are used there, and they all have scripts in them that are open source, so and reusable. So, and they're really well scripted. So I would definitely be looking at that. It's a couple of similar kinds of things for other types of vehicles. I put for planes and things, I put a package out on our airport region. I'm not happy with the current state of physics, especially for flying vehicles. And we've had this conversation in the past. We were kind of spoiled with physics, and but that's something I'm going to keep working on, and hopefully we'll be able to move that forward in the future. As far as the models, I mean, you can use anything that makes sense. If you want to bring models in from, say, a third-party service like a CG Trader or something like that, just be aware of the intellectual property aspect. How is it licensed? Does it allow you to do that? And also try and look at the level of detail. You don't want to bring something that's super high poly in. It won't perform well on the grid, and eventually, when I make changes to land impact, that the land impact will reflect that, so it'll end up being a problem. So like a high poly or low poly game model is fine as long as the license allows it to be used in this purpose. There, anything. Others may have suggestions too. Yeah. So the big thing to look for is it licensed in such a way that you're allowed to use it in a virtual setting like this? CC0 is a good thing. If you see something, sometimes they just require attribution. Just be aware of the license and make sure that it's something that you can reuse. You might also find some things on the Second Life marketplace. There are a few people that sell DAEs that make them available. But so anyway, yeah, be aware of the licensing, and then also be aware of the model itself and how high poly that model is. You want to try and focus on game models that are they're low poly models that still look good, as those will be more workable as far as something that is you make physical. There are actually going to be limitations in the future on what things can be made physical based on the size of the model or how many, what the land impact happens to be. All right. Kai, I'll have to dig it out, the PBR info. If not, yeah, if you're, okay, so that's perfect. If you're doing, Silence, if you're doing 19 to 40 land impact in SL with the algorithms they have there, there's some things that the land impact system in OpenSim is pretty primitive. It actually doesn't track a lot of things at all. I did a much more detailed version of something for Halcyon back in when Inwoods was around, and that's the kind of thing I'm talking about bringing over here. So it'll be closer to what you're used to in SL. But if you're building and bringing in models that are in the range that you're describing, you'll Fancy. I think you have the stage.
You can import things into USG from the SL marketplace?
Sometimes, yeah. So that's a good question. There are a number of template companies that sell templates, a lot of times for clothing, for instance. But there are people that sell objects as well.
My
Usually,
concern is with avatars.
yeah. So generally not. I'm not aware of a lot of any of the avatars that are available in SL that make them available in OpenSim. That's largely because of all the rampant copy botting that's happened over here.
Okay.
People they just don't take it seriously, so they don't come over.
All right. Got my
I'd like
hopes
to,
up.
yeah, I'd like to continue to try and address that, and hopefully someday that will change. But right now, um, that's kind of the state of affairs.
Okay. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Mhm. Anybody else? All right, I don't see any new questions. Thank you, everybody, for your attention. I hope these meetings are helpful. We're going to continue to try and do them around every month or so, and we'll send out information as we get closer to our anniversary, and we'll try and do a cool celebration, where we can all celebrate 5 years together and the next 5 that we're going to have going forward. So, and we'll have the Golden Touch stuff, the show that we're currently working on. I'm excited about that, and I think you'll enjoy it. All right, that's it. I think if there are no further questions, we're going to call this done. Tanya mentioned that there's an event going on immediately following this on her region. If you're inclined, please attend, and I think we're going to head over there. But thanks, and we'll talk to you all soon.